And we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second to last stream that I'll be doing for the year and for Fallout for Hope. Tonight, we have something a little more casual. Tomorrow night, I will be doing the Storage Wars game, a brand new game that we've been working in Fallout 76 on, and I'm really happy about that one. But tonight we have something a little more fun, a little more casual. Hello, Zelix, and hello, Mythical Rules Me. Tonight we're going to go back through season 1 and take a look at the scripts, talk about what people loved, paths not taken, weird moments, that kind of thing. And I'm joined by Jessica Dickey tonight. Hello, Jessica.
Hello.
I'm also joined by the one and only Clint.
Hey.
And last but not least, Taylor Jinx Knight, the voice of Amada.
Hey.
There she be. All right, so tonight, the way I did this, so right now I have up on the screen our website. And what a lot of people still don't know, each season of the web, as we close it out, there are full episode pages and transcripts. So all of the scripts from the show that you listen to, you can actually go to the website at any point in time and read right through the original scripts, the same scripts that we use. So let's start out with episode 1. So this was where it all began. And the episode title is actually, his name was Chad. The opening here, this episode, when I first did it, it was based off the original journal stories that I did on Reddit. And this episode was kind of a test balloon. The very first journal story was pretty short. So, I mean, I think this is our shortest full episode ever. It's only 13 minutes and 45 seconds. But it was also the very first audio production I have ever done. And I think we've come a long way since then. Now, I have begged and pleaded to go back and remaster these, at least these original 4 episodes. And according to both the cast and our patrons and public, it came in as a resounding no. So I'm going to play a little bit of the beginning here, and I'm going to tell you my number one biggest pet peeve with this episode. Oh, hang on.
In a world where solid-state electronics and vacuum tubes are still meta.
Actually, that's...
a vault broke, naked and afraid. You driving off
that's the trailer. That's the trailer. Okay, here we go. This post-apocalyptic podcast contains some foul language, dark humor, and depictions of well-warranted violence. You have been warned. Proceed through the vault door at your own risk. Well, that's never gonna heal. I'm going to pause it right there. So this initial thing, bearing in mind that this was the first audio production I ever did, the sound quality on that was just, it kills my ear at this point. I liken it to, it's supposed to be, Simon, this is at the very end, by the way. It's taken us 2 seasons to come back to this point, but the end of this season, actually, you're hearing it right now. Just before the battle when Simon makes his way back to a safe house after having a final encounter with Chad, that Chad injected him with something very permanent that will prevent him from ever being able to use stim packs to regenerate again, to hobble him before battle, which is a pretty brutal thing to do, I have to say. But that sound of a first approaching the shack, it sounds like I'm wearing plastic bags on my feet. Like the sound is just so loud, and then the door opens, and it's like it's old school Foley in terms of walking. Yeah.
I was watching your face while we were listening to it.
It's just
and
Yeah.
you were like cringing.
it's so loud. So then it continues on, and we get kind of our first introduction to Simon here, where he loads up the holotapes and begins what became kind of a trope of ours that we've left behind a little bit, which is the Appalachia day 42, 74 degrees Fahrenheit, sunny and clear, where we have the beginning of each one of his entries as if he's reading these diaries. And we stopped doing that eventually because it was kind of unnecessary now that we had a full cast. I think I want to start doing them again once we get closer to the battle for Appalachia. And since, you're hearing the ending now, it's kind of obvious that eventually Simon's going to be unthawed. We get Simon's first takes on Chad. And the way in which this opens, and it shows kind of how far we've come character-wise, talking about his impression of who Chad is, which is really stereotypical in terms of what the meme for Chad is. And we've come such a long way from that with Susie, him adopting her and taking care of her, and the relationship that they developed together in this kind of weird family with Moose and Patsy and everyone. It's kind of the polar opposite of the kind of weird polycule dysfunctional relationship that Simon has with Jake and Amada. Yeah, Chad's gang is a little more wholesome.
It's weird how that turned right around.
Yeah. It's and I didn't intend so the trope of you slowly liking Chad was really intentional, but only after episode 4, when I saw the feedback that we got from people in terms of the dynamic between Chad and Susie became oddly wholesome. So I decided to flip things and make Simon the villain, which I think is the biggest shift from what the original journal stories were, which the journal stories played out with Simon the hero and Chad being the villain. As we got towards the end of those original stories, and we've departed so wildly from that, with Simon now being a really obviously false protagonist. And still to this day, a lot of people will comment or write in like, I find myself liking Chad, and I don't know why. We played such a long and subtle game with that, I think, that you get just these little wholesome moments bit by bit, and then you start to like him, when in the beginning you just can't stand him.
Well, and especially when it comes to that Chad arc, because season 1, he is way more of, the douchebag, the classic Chad that we all know. And then like you just grow with that arc, and you're just like, Chad's the good guy. This Simon character now, I don't care for him.
Yeah,
It was like one of the biggest plot twists.
Yes. Get to grow with Chad almost. Grow up with him, and as he's growing up.
And that's exactly what it is. Like, if you picture everything that happens inside the vault, it's all very insular. It's a siloed community. They're kind of coddled. They're told they're the best and brightest. So it's like they're in school. The overseer is very much a teacher, mom kind of figure. And then all of the way in which they act and interact, and the kind of stunts that they pull, all of that is very juvenile, which makes sense. I mean, they grew up in the vault, and now they're kind of off on their own. It's like, okay, you've graduated now, fuck off, good luck. And then you have
like real life.
It's very much like real life.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, training wheels are off, I guess. And some
Let me
people,
tell you too, like just being like a youngin here, it's really great to see that. And like personally, I feel like it does relate a lot to fans too, because after like COVID, I feel like everything kind of like really overtook with it, which is, I mean, absolutely a great thing. But I feel like it really got that sense of like, we understand that you guys are lost. We're lost too. We're here for you.
Yep. Yeah, it also, when you think about it too, I think the root of Simon's struggle is some people don't move on from high school.
Mm-hmm.
Like they remain stuck and then they just don't mature. And if anything, they kind of wish they were back there and want to go back as opposed to, grow and change and move on.
Mm-hmm.
That's very much a Simon thing. He's stuck.
It's definitely one of those, like when people say like you peaked in high school. Well, like not even in a peak way, like your emotion grew to this one standpoint and it planes from there. It doesn't keep growing, nor does it take a crash. You're stuck in that abyss of high school and immaturity.
But now you have access to weapons.
Exactly.
Right.
And the internet.
Right.
Batman's for days, hey.
Which makes sense when you take a look at the numbers, that in Fallout 76, we've dropped something like 800,000 nukes on Appalachia, which from a lore standpoint probably doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense, but we're all just living in the atoms. Yeah, and then we get to, I'm going to jump ahead to the denouement point. To build a pre-war porta potty based on some blueprints I found. In actuality, I'm stag, grazing on take my shot, careening. I was woken up at 4 in the fucking morning to Chad grinding and banging away at my armor station. He then had the gall to help himself to some of my leftover dog food. He just went right into my stash and pretended like impossibly it magically is only his things, as if that made any sense at all. By 7 a.m., he was piss drunk and thought it would be hilarious to climb on top of my power armor and taunt passers-by with a hail of gunfire. Of course, they returned fire, and now 2 of my walls are blown out. I quietly walked a short distance away and vented my growing frustration by shooting at some felled trees until I was out of bullets and covered in sawdust. Shut this off. Appalachia, day 45. What the fuck time is it? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be fucking kidding me. That's enough. Morning. Yeah. Well, it's a great day for it. I shot Chad in the face today. Beautiful weather. Outlook is promising. Country roads take me home. Gonna dig a shallow grave. West Virginia County. And that was it. Yeah, when I remember when back during year 1, there was so much meta stuff that we injected in there that when you think about building a home in the wasteland, people were treating it like as if it was their house. So people were getting pretty pissed off and going on Reddit saying like, I wish people would stop coming in the house using my stuff, and they're on my workbenches, and
you lock your doors.
I lock my doors. These these fucking people busted in my house. It's like, all right. Or if you use the brick walls with the wider window panes, you can actually just jump through those. And
Right.
Like, there's fucking people in my house. I wish stop using my shit.
I like the people who like put their workbenches on the lower level, but then they like lock the door to the upper level, like where the living quarters are.
Yeah. Or they hide their stuff inside like closed off walls so you can't even...
Yeah.
I guess I never understood that whole part of it. Like, it's not hurting you or anybody else for them to use your workstation or your bed or anything. Like, sure, okay, the bed, like even video game, it's like, okay, that's creepy, that's mine, but like the armor station or like why can't they use it? You're not there. You won't. Do you know how many people use your stations while you're not there? You never really know.
So many people left the toilet seat up.
So many people.
Who hasn't walked away at some point, to get a drink or go to the restroom, and then come back and just some random stranger is just
teabagging you
while you're sleeping.
Right.
That's just part
I
of
did a lot of that with the Mr. Fuzzy rides and stuff. Like those are great for that. I'm sorry. Maybe it's terrible, but oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, Ken, it's almost like people are treating it like it's their own home. So it's that wish for some kind of privacy, maybe, even in the virtual world.
Yeah, so that was episode 1. Episode 1 was pretty short. So then we get to episode 2. And episode 2 was still very much scripted exactly as you heard. So I'm still using the Reddit stories that I wrote at this point. So this one opens kind of where we left off. So we go back. It's still, Simon singing about shooting him in the face. He resumes recording and then expands on that. And then this right here is when our entire arc got introduced. But here in this place, the dead don't stay dead, do they? I didn't know it then, but giving in and killing that son of a bitch was the start of a long line of mistakes. Internal bleeding, whatever he did to me, Stimpaks no longer work, but I'll have the last laugh. I remember when. And then we're introduced to the insult bot that literally delivered a box of dicks.
I remember that.
Yeah. And I really liked the insult bot's jingles. They reminded me of, there's that hilarious point in the movie Clue that parodies the 1950s and 60s singing telegrams. So they would they would come over to your house and sing like this cheesy little jingle and then give you your message. I'm a singing telegram.
Perfect.
Yeah, so we had the insult bot come in. And then it goes right into the story and picks up where we left off. And at this point, it's when Simon realizes for the very first time, 46 days in, that death doesn't work out here. Thinking that Chad had died and did not, in fact, die. So he just finds this shallow grave and starts completely panicking about it. Thank you for the follow, Captain Laserbeam. And also, giveaways are still going on, by the way. Exclamation point giveaway. We've got a whole host of giveaway items that we're doing. Everything from a exceptionally rare, only created by the Xbox and Bethesda Softworks marketing departments for the Philadelphia 76ers. We have an Xbox One that was developed for that team specifically.
Wow.
So it's kind of the ultimate giveaway that's been gifted to us. That is one of the giveaways, as well as a lovely gaming chair. Elgato Steam Decks. We got a whole bunch of stuff that we're giving away. And if you can, and if you have not yet, every little bit counts for St. Jude. We're currently at, where are we? I think we're at 70.
Yeah, congratulations, Clint, on reaching and surpassing your goal.
Yeah, so good,
Yeah.
Clint. Good for you. That's
Multiple times.
71,272 is where we're at.
That's amazing.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, this was the pie bit.
That is my favorite part.
So not only does Simon find a shallow grave, but in just trying to get a piece of pie, because he's starving, out of this machine, and it kind of mimics again the meta experience of us trying to get a perfectly preserved pie out of the machine. I tried my entire playthrough of Fallout 4 and never once got it. And in 76, I think I've only got it twice. And as he's grinding away for it, he's slowly losing his mind until he just dies. And then we got our first breakaways just after Simon's heart stops beating. Then we get this cheery 1950s music busting in and the perfectly preserved pie commercial, which to date is still a fan favorite. And anytime we get a chance to do those commercials, I love doing them.
This post blown out wall on.
It's fun. It almost you get another voice in there for a little bit.
Kitchen Jim.
That's different from the cast. It's a really beautiful way to break up an episode. Put like a little intermission in.
It is, especially when there's something serious going on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to play a little bit of the pie commercial here.
I was
Honey,
about to say the
I'm
pie
home.
commercials.
I'm in the kitchen, Jim.
Oh, man.
Say,
Pie
what's
commercials
that
are always
amazing
fun.
aroma?
I'm gonna roll in the
Why,
floor and
it's
dive.
my plump and delicious pie.
Ooh, gee whiz, Susan, that's one moist-looking pie. But what's the occasion?
Well, Jim, lately I've noticed you sneaking next door every time Miss Robbins takes her pie out.
But Susan,
A man should eat pie in his own home, served up piping hot. Here, try this.
oh heavenly days, McGee. Look at all those plump and flaky layers. What's your secret?
A lady never talks about her pie, Jim. Just try a bite.
Oh, mouthwater tastes. Incredible. It's perfect.
Just one juicy bite, and even the neighbors won't stop eating my pie.
Wait till the fellas down at the office hear about this.
I have enough pie for all of them, Jim. Invite them over tomorrow evening. I'll make sure you land that big promotion.
Oh, Susan,
Yes, Jim.
your pie is perfect.
Yes, I know. And ladies, between you and me, the secret is all in the box. Ask your grocer for new perfectly preserved pie mix from Whamco.
There is nothing funnier to me than the kind of so polished and pristine, cheeky 1950s Americana, the innocence presented of that era, injecting some sexual innuendo into it. I think that is just hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely why it's a fan favorite, in my opinion, especially because the pie, perfectly preserved pie, is a recurring joke in mine and my husband's relationship, where
Wait,
in
what?
every no, let me explain, because this is a very hot button issue. So
It's a hot button
the
issue.
pie
Okay.
itself- yes, it's a hot button issue. So every single Fallout, because that's kind of like Fallout, Skyrim, it's our thing, like we're Bethesda heads, and every single Fallout, this man gets the pie every time. Like, I promise you, it's every single time. And it's so funny because I am, reiterating Simon, losing my mind trying to get it. I've gotten it, like you said earlier, I've gotten it twice during Fallout 76. Never got it in 4. And I'm sitting here and like every single time we're at like the purveyor or something, he's like, oh, try it twice, you'll get it. He goes up and tries it like after I try it like 68 times. And he's like, oh, look at me, I got it first try. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, like the pie commercial itself was just great. It was phenomenal. It's absolutely one of my favorites. And it just makes it that much better because of that personal, aspect.
I get the pie every time. That needs to be on a t-shirt.
Well, we've got a new
Absolutely.
commercial, folks. Strap in. We're going to talk about pie.
Get ready, boys, explaining how my husband can't get enough of my pie. Oh my God.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah, and the episode
Fancy.
ends here with Simon becoming increasingly frustrated with the reality of the world. So not only does he starve to death and die, but comes back. He ends up being killed by fellow vault weavers and respawned back at the vault. So in these early days, it became a recurring joke that no matter how far Simon got into the world, he would always end up back where he started. Until he finally does agree that he's going to become Death, the Destroyer of Worlds, and turn Appalachia to glass.
Very dramatic.
Yes. So that was our episode 2. Episode kind of 3. So we had a 4th of July special that we injected in there. I'd written the episodes ahead. So by this point, I knew that by episode 4, I wanted to bring in a full cast. So that's when I put out the casting announcements. And while we were working on episode 4, and I had episode 3 written, I wanted to do a 4th of July episode that would be kind of a soft launch of having a full ensemble cast. So this one saw what would have been 4th of July as celebrated in the vault. And it had all of the classic tropes, the food eating contests. It had a parade with Shriners driving around on little cars. And of course, there's an accident and explosion in the vault. It's just a fun, cutesy episode. A lot of times people like to listen to holiday or watch holiday episodes of shows when the holiday comes around. And I think this is the most over-the-top patriotic one we ever did.
All I'm saying is I totally could have beat Marianne at that hot dog eating contest, okay? That was not fair.
I mean, if not for the mutation giving her the snake-like ability
Right.
to dislocate her jaw.
Well, they told me to take Radaway first, not after, okay?
Yes, but did you have your class freak and what's the other one called?
Look,
Freak.
I'm a big enough class freak for everybody. I don't need some card telling me I am.
Yeah, also the beginning bit here for the 4th of July special was some National Archive footage from the Howdy Doody show, in which Howdy Doody is talking about the importance of patriotism. And then, of course, it cuts straight to a nuclear blast before the episode begins.
The irony.
Yeah, we're introduced to Simmons and Hugo setting up WV76 AM, the radio station that was inside the vault that we came back to a few times. That was in that last year that they were in the vault, kind of a project to have a student dweller run radio station. Hey, Unique Carnage. Yeah, and this is the first time that we really meet Jake and Mr. Foster. Hugo talking about the 4th of July festivities.
Really set all the characters up for, their personalities and where you'd find them in the next couple seasons.
Yeah, it was a nice soft way to introduce, and also for us, it was the first time we were really playing our characters off each other. So doing like a standalone holiday special was a good way to break them in a little bit. Yeah, and then of course you're introduced to Chad for the first time.
I definitely remember the first table read we ever did on this episode, I'm pretty sure. And it was so funny because at first we're all like, no, nobody really knows each other here. Like we all just kind of got thrown in this Facebook group chat.
Yeah.
And it was just like we're all trying to play our parts, but we're all like, we don't know what we're doing yet. What are you talking about? I just remember it being a really good time and really fun, backstage at that first table read. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It started everything in motion for us. So,
and thank you, iPixel. Hey, Mother of Dragons, and Wreck-It Renee.
Hello.
Oh, Susie, that's okay, dear. Jessica is here in spirit. We miss you. Yeah, the play that they ended up doing, that Chad kind of ruins, was a really great first introduction to how much of a dick he is. Because we never ever hear Chad in that first opening episode. All you hear is Simon talking about him and then shooting him, but you don't really hear his voice until this one. We're also introduced to kind of a plot hole, where I introduced a prototype Liberty Prime as like a throwaway gag that, of course, it wreaks havoc at the end of the episode. And Dr. Mark Hausworth did a really amazing job with Liberty Prime, I have to say.
Yes.
In fact, we should play some of that here.
I've actually got one of his sound bites.
It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Go on, play. Hey. Why is there a lock symbol on that? All right, I guess we're not going to hear that. That's weird. For some reason it's locked. I'll figure that out.
You violated copyright infringement.
Here we go. Yeah, with Liberty Prime at the end. We're going to come back to that because I introduced a way too overpowered character just as a runaway gag that we can never mention again. And it also it was also designed to be the scale of the power armor. Like I wanted there to be a realistic explanation for why there are all of these Liberty Primes running around Appalachia with people inside them. These little prototypes. Yeah, so that was our 4th of July episode. Then we come to episode 3, which I remember the first time we met Pete Hines when we were at Bethesda Game Days. And the joke in this one, this is when Simon for the first time finds Jake after looking for him in Amada for all of this time, finally finding them. And then Jake feeds him soup, only to find out that the soup was Tits McGee, someone they used to know and tease back in the vault. And I remember when I was first talking to Pete Hines, he said, it would be hilarious if you just walked around in a t-shirt that said, "I ate Tits McGee." And you never ever explained it. It's just one of those t-shirts where nobody's like, what the hell?
I'm just saying I'll design it tonight and we're putting it in the merch store. It'll be in the merch store tomorrow.
We have to send one to him. Be like, this was inspired by you. Thank you, sir.
Wreck-It Renee wants to play Tits McGee.
Yes.
Can we? Yes. Oh my God.
I mean, technically, Tits McGee is still out there, Wreck-It Renee. And she's probably pretty pissed off at this point.
Yeah.
Half eaten,
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Can we get a Piss Flaps shirt too?
Yes.
Oh no.
Yes.
We need piss flaps. Did we ever get art for piss flaps?
No.
No.
Oh, we need art for
No.
piss flaps.
That
Come on, Kenny.
That is the most cringe character that I have ever created.
It was so good.
I mean,
though.
it's
He
hilarious.
was so popular though. Like,
It's
Can you imagine
hilarious
the message
because
to Craig,
oh
like
yeah,
asking for that
Yes.
artwork?
Greg's like,
I need
yeah.
you to create.
Here's what the
this.
character's
I need
name
to create
is.
a
Yeah,
character
character's
called
name is-
Flaps, you know.
Let's just call her Miss Flaps.
Right, Miss Flaps.
Yeah, that was
Or Pius.
the story behind
sure.
that character is when I was in high school, I did a history project on Pearl Harbor. And I ended up losing the audio track on the VHS tape, so we couldn't use it for that project. So then we just had this random video footage of a short play that I wrote, in which, you know, this it's reenacting someone who's found out that they lost their brother in Pearl Harbor and is visited by the ghost of the brother. And so since we didn't have that, when I had a cable access show, we ended up coming back to that footage and then redubbing it. And I invented just this really high-pitched, weird voice. And she would keep interrupting herself by making horse noises.
Mm.
So
Wow.
Oh my god, this is amazing.
so that, you know, I could probably play that.
Oh yes. Yes, you should.
I think I may have that somewhere. Hang on.
Can you make sure
But
that
I'm rep-
we can hear that? Because that'd be great.
Let's see. At the time, it was just about the funniest thing ever. And I wanted to do kind of a different weird voice. And because like our Christmas episode was pretty dire. Like the score is bleak. And it's a pretty bleak story. I mean, you know, Santa's a ghoul now and depressed. And just really unhappy. All right, hang on. Let me. Yeah, I can't play that. That's Waterloo. Let's see. It's it's right here. All right. All right, hang on. Let me loop this in here. And this is going to look incredibly goofy because it's VHS quality. It looks like softcore porn.
That classy 80s.
All right, and bear with me. I mean, I was 15 at the time that I made this, so you know it's going to be a little something. All right, there's.
Okay, love it.
All right, let me resize this here. All right, so there's.
Okay, love it.
All right, let me. Wait, why am I hearing myself? And if you're listening to this, I'll hear it double. So just mute yourself for a second while you listen to this. So this is the origin of that particular character.
I think is your vagina on fire?
Ha! I'm the name Plant! You may have seen me walking around town. My vagina's always hanging out of my fucking pants. Well, anyway, there I was changing my fucking phone number. The next thing I know, I saw your sweet ass! Phone number! Well, anyway, it was nice talking to you. Gotta go change my phone number.
I love your pants. I love fire. I'm pretty cool.
It's important to note that our cable access show is only available at 1 a.m. in the morning in northeastern Massachusetts.
Oh my god.
Yeah. All right, so that's yeah, pretty cringe. But that's where the voice and character came from.
Perfect.
It's cringe. So the character is coming
The right
back.
type of cringe.
For the you did come in. Yeah. Ray, it was 1:00 in the morning on cable access. Anything goes. I said, so what exactly can we get away with and do? He's like, you can do whatever you want. It's cable access. I was like, okay.
You said it.
Fair enough. I mean, we'd seen Wayne's World, so we all had visions of the show
Yeah.
actually going somewhere. And I think a lot of people started cable access shows around that time. That character is coming back, but voiced by somebody else. I find it personally embarrassing.
So wait,
Same.
Piss Claps is coming back.
She's gonna have a small character role in the battle. So
My vagina's
He
hanging
sounds
out of my
so thrilled
pants.
about
because
that.
the battlefield, the battle for Appalachia will have every single character that we've had.
Nice.
Characters that fell down wells, characters that we've never heard again. I've had a way to bring them back in a sense.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm excited.
I'm
Yeah, so-
super excited.
So episode 3, so Chem's Camping and Chemicals Oh My has 2 really fun moments. It's Simon deciding to camp out on Deathclaw Island, and that going about as well as you'd expect. And finally, for the first time, meeting Jake, but also realizing that everybody out here has adopted weird names. I've been venturing north on Jake, or General Penis with a 1 in it. Stumbled upon something amazing: the ruins of the old Tyler County dirt track. Yeah, so this was Jake and I talking about Amada, wondering where she was, and the moment where Simon is fed somebody they knew in the vault as Tits McGee. And ending with Jake asking if Simon was upset that Jake fed Simon Tits McGee, and he said no, and then of course eats Jake, and moves on. And that's the end of season 3, episode 3. Then episode 4, until our Halloween episode, this was our most listened to episode of all time, and it makes sense. People really love origin stories, and this is really the origin story of so many of our characters. So we start out pre-war on that final day, and out of anything that we've done, creating that final morning was a lot of fun. So there's a lot of stuff going on in terms of sound design. We open in a garden, everything is great. It's a beautiful October day, and we're introduced to Susie and Ella. By the time I dropped the episode, I'd already changed Ella's voice. The original one I modeled far too closely on the Edison talking dolls, which, if you've never heard, is straight up nightmare fuel. But the feedback that I got from a few people is that it was hard to make out what Ella was saying because of the sound quality, and also it was also considered scary, so I softened her a little bit.
It's been nightmare fuel.
Definitely
Ella's
nightmare.
not scary.
The news announcement that's in the background, where I put loads of Easter eggs to Fallout and also popular culture in our episodes, and if you listen closely, you can sometimes catch them because I try and do them as subtly as possible. The news announcer in the background while the family's talking and having breakfast, and you're introduced to Susie's family, talking about Patch's pumpkin house for the final pumpkin gala. So that's reference to the pumpkin house. Dick Justice and the Strumettes will be playing there all weekend long. Dick Justice was a really famous musician from West Virginia. So I dropped him in there. The White Spring completed their grand reopening this weekend. The White Spring had just finished their renovations before the war broke out. So I put in a little nod to that. Local police stepping in. Mysterious lights in the evenings in the Atlantic Pacific Ocean, and the Pentagon investigating actively the possibility of Chinese submarines violating United States sovereign waters. The other fun thing here is up until this point, Mr. and Mrs. Davis are your typical 1950s American family. It's very sitcom. I know, Renee. I loved the name. The moment that the West Virginia emergency broadcast system goes off, that facade kind of crumbles away, and the humor comes in with them rushing around. Mr. Davis ordering people around, Mrs. Davis worrying about her dishware set, talking about the sex robot that they don't want to leave behind. Yeah. Mr. Davis getting into a verbal argument with a neighbor about his cheating wife at the Flatwoods Motel. Just the whole facade completely crumbles as it's kind of everyone for themselves. And then Mark recreating the exact dialogue from Fallout 4. So in Fallout 4, the news radio broadcast that you see in the beginning bit there when you book it for the bunker, I had Mark recreate here, and this is exactly what that news anchor had said in Fallout 4. Yeah. So I tried to maintain that continuity as much as possible. Even driving time, in audio form, I figured out what the driving time would be between where Susie's house would be in World and Vault 76. And it makes sense. You know, everyone knows this vault exists. It was a very big public spectacle. I did think it a little odd that on that final day with even that much notice, there wasn't, more cars and dead bodies, because it makes sense in that kind of panic moment. Where can you possibly go? And that just up the hill here is this huge vault that is fully protected and able to sustain you. It would make sense for people to kind of book it there. And then we start to see a little bit of Ella. So we're not quite sure at this point what's going on there. If she's like a Twilight Zone-esque haunted doll, if this is all in Susie's head and she's hearing voices, like we don't know what the deal is there. But Ella ends up saving Susie by telling her to get into the lead-lined trunk of the car, while Mr. and Mrs. Davis are cooked.
So speaking of Ella, because I want to say I remember us having this conversation, but it may be a good talking point because we are in season 1, talking about origins and backstories and everything. What made you want to come up with the Tickle My Fanny Ella doll?
I was trying to think of what the equivalent to the insanity of like the 80s and 90s Christmas capitalism. The obsession over every year in the 80s and 90s, there was a specifically hyped toy to the point that people would go absolutely insane to try and get it for their kid. That's the whole point to Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It plays off that period in time where there would be a popular toy that would come out in limited number. You would have to go to the store and like be ready to do it and like bring your fists, and it would get ugly. Like there's the Black Friday stuff that you see on TV of people getting into fistfights was all very real here, with people freaking out over these. So she's kind of a mix between an old school Edison talking doll and the insanity over the Tickle Me Elmo doll back in the day.
First child of Christmas and capitalism put into a doll. I love it.
That's kind of where she came from. And also, I've forever find humor in words that have double meanings. The word fanny in America has a very different meaning and connotation than in other parts of the world. So every time she says "tickle my fanny" as her catchphrase, I find it hilarious.
Absolutely.
Vault 76, we're introduced. The very first scene that we get in Vault 76 is when we're introduced to Patsy for the very first time. We get some real growth there, Jess. The personal diary of Patsy Parker.
Yes.
I'm just saying, she's a little cuckoo, guys.
You had a cricket talking doll as a kid. Oh dear.
Oh, I remember those.
Oh yeah, the old days of physical inventory instead of digital wait lists.
My buddy. Yeah. My buddy.
Wherever he goes.
You're gonna go. My buddy. Oh, kid sister. Kid sister.
Patsy, like a lot of the characters, has still had a growth and maturity arc of her own. I mean, at this point in time, she's still very much a completely airheaded valley girl. In the first opening paragraph here, we are getting a little bit of insight into her character. She's talking about how Chad's the best boyfriend. Chad and I celebrate our 3-year anniversary tonight. At lunch today, he brought over a Salisbury steak in the shape of a heart, and underneath it said, "I kind of love you. Let's do it in the utility closet." He's like the most romantic boyfriend I've ever had. Like, he literally serves her meat, and he said, "Let's go."
Let's go do it.
Sure. Thank you for the Sure. We'll go with that.
From well fed.
You know, Chad comes in. He talks about a prank that they did with the fusion generator. Moose had replaced the fire extinguisher with whipped cream. Talking about Coach being on fire. Yeah, and then we're introduced to Amada and Mr. Malteds, which I still really want to come back to him. Like Craig even did character art for Mr. Malteds accompanying you in the Wasteland. And we did have a flashback moment of Mr. Malteds kind of chasing people out of the vault. Some of the robots, when you think about it, that are programmed for specific tasks, kind of like the Miss Nanny bots, their programming gets broken when their function ceases to exist. Like, his entire role is just to make malteds, but with nobody left in the vault, it's kind of like, what exactly does he do with himself? Well, he just ends up going crazy. Yeah, and also at this point in time, we got both Chad and Jake interested in Amada, and then Jake finally works up the gumption to, you know, ask her.
Which I think was absolutely brilliant, might I add, because just the way that like Chad's story arc has went, I don't know, me personally, even though I don't have children, that's like a super soft spot. So I just like absolute kudos there, because that is amazing. Like, and I feel like it would have just absolutely changed the entire dynamic of the story itself if it would have went with like Amada and Chad, and that just would have been really weird, because that's like, you know, Chad, and Amada's like a nerdy tinker, like, you know what I mean? So, and it just, it's nice to see that friction of wholesomeness come from somebody who is a Chad. And it's just, I really like, even as we progress and continue to do seasons of this, I really love that story arc that you've written in, and it's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun to see how the characters have grown. Even Moose, the way in which your character has grown.
Patsy hasn't really grown much.
Moose has grown quite a bit. But it's definitely with Moose though, like he's still this is what I always refer to him as, is the dim-witted jock, but he's like aged, like, because of everything he's been through so far with getting out of the vault and all the things he's been through with Chad, and even more so with Patsy now. Like, Moose is growing up and not just going with the flow. He's very much trying to, like, okay, we're doing this, like,
Moose is like that guy that, like, Moose is like that guy that, like, as you mentioned earlier, as we kind of started this with, kind of stuck, like, on that plateau of being in high school. But at the same time, he's also like that weird kid that, like, got a lot of money and is out just doing shit. Does that make sense? Like, that's his vibe, and I love it. Like, it's great.
It's very loyal.
Very loyal.
Yeah. I mean, Moose makes a great wingman, really, to anybody. And while he's always going to be Chad's second in command, the relationship that he forms with Punch, he finds someone initially that is as equally kind of dumb in a charming way as he is, who is just simple in terms of his wants and desires in, like, a really endearing way. Like, Punch just doesn't want to kill people and just really wants to have a family, have fun, and make brew. Like, that's it. That's all he needs to be completely happy.
I love the way that they play off of each other too. Like, just the chemistry that they, like, in a weird sense, they were made for each other. And it just, it brings Moose to a higher level. It brings Punch to a higher level. It was brilliant. And I love it. I love the chemistry that's done there between those two characters.
Yeah. And when we got to go to Boston, and me and real life Punch, Christian, got hotel rooms, and we were, roommates for the day or whatever. Like, me and him probably set up for like an hour and just talked one night, and we were just like, what do you do? Like, having that one-to-one with somebody you've never, like, physically met, and you're, like, really trying to get to know them and grilling them. And, like, me and Christian, like, hardcore on if we lived right next door to each other, we would be best friends, and we would be up in each other's grill every day. Like,
aww,
it's a good dude.
So much fun.
Christian's a great dude.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The overseer. So the seeds of what would be our arc are planted really early on, and a lot of this stuff is kind of throwaways that, when now that we're in season 2, some of it starts to make sense. So I tried to solve the problem of, why is it that you wake up and everyone else is already gone? Like, there's no big moment where a whole bunch of you head out at once. Initially, Fallout 76 was designed to have a lot more people in a single server, like 3 times as many people. So when you arrived in the vault, it was meant that all of those other rooms would actually have people also exiting the same time. So when you're leaving and going out into the Wasteland, there'd be other people kind of following you as you're leaving, which makes a lot of sense. But from the character's perspective, Simon wakes up, Chad wakes up, everyone's already gone. And it's like, okay, I guess I'm going to leave now. After they've made all of these plans, and it also didn't make sense based on what the mission is. So the mission of Vault 76, its entire purpose that everyone knows, is, on paper, it's meant to be a control vault, and they've gathered the best and brightest who are supposed to go out into the Wasteland and restart civilization. The problem is that doesn't make sense based on the way in which we exit and enter the world and what we're given. So you wake up, you head out there with the clothes on your back, I guess, and you're given, like, a bottle of water, some Radaway, and some scrap lumber. Like, here you go restart civilization. What?
Don't forget the party hat.
And the party hat.
Given a party hat.
And a pen.
like none of this even makes sense. So in year one, we kind of joke about that fact that you're going out the door and you've got like lumber and some water and this camp unit, but you're underprepared for what your task is. And I think because we've made such a joke of that, I'd like to think that the reason now with the Wastelanders update that now when you start a new character, new players of the game actually leave with proper gear, including weapons. I wonder if our joke had something to do with that, because it doesn't make sense when you think about it. So taking the meta experience of that, I wanted to make a plot reason for it to have been done that way. And that kind of happens here with Vince and the Overseer kind of colluding, where they tease a little bit, where the beverages have been dosed. So everyone's at this party, and the Overseer has made sure through Vince that they're all drugged. Around midnight, everyone will make sure that everyone's tucked in. Standees and supplies will be ready. Everything's programmed. The handies will revive them one by one. The Overseer doesn't agree with any of this. She wants to be able to go out and set them up, which makes sense for her actions. So she immediately breaks protocol and starts leaving us supplies out there and little breadcrumbs to kind of help us out. And she also finds a loophole in Vault Tech and Braun's plan. 5 a.m. instructions or not, they never said anything about me not leaving things for them. I loaded crates by the vault door. When it unseals, some of the handies will be dispatched to drag them to key areas. I'm not going to leave them empty-handed. With any luck, I can rendezvous with some of them at the stash points. And then here, we're introduced to a big bad that's been in the shadows that you haven't met yet, and you will quite soon, is Stanislaus Braun. So you know what Braun said, flawless execution of testing parameters. That's one person you don't want to piss off. The Overseer saying, Vault Tech, he won't succeed. Besides, he's tied up with his own experiment, meaning the experiment that he has going on in the capital Wasteland at this point in time. The other thing that didn't make sense was the discontinuity between the Reclamation Day date, as we know it in Fallout 76, and what the original date was supposed to be for the vault opening, which we learn later in Fallout 3 is a 5-year difference. So Vince and the Overseer ended up messing up that plan. So the vault originally unseals. The Overseer goes out, takes a look around, realizes 5 years before this Reclamation Day happens, we still have all of the awful stuff happening in Appalachia. You've got Scorch Plague, you've got the Liberators, you've got everything that went wrong, and everyone dying before we exit was already in progress. So she ends up giving them a grace period by screwing up the computer system, resetting the clock, and it ends up breaking everyone's gyrometers on the Pip-Boy that it synchronized to the server back in Vault 76. So I tried to tie up some weird loose canon things in a way that would make sense for our story.
It actually helped people answer some of those questions for themselves too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because especially when you think about the fact that the experience that we have in Vault 76 and outside and in Appalachia doesn't make a lot of sense for what we're supposed to be doing. Like as far as really getting into nukes, and we dig into that in season 2, what's really going on here with the Vault Tech experiment, learning that the vault was a false control vault. The experiment actually starts the minute they leave.
Where did you get the idea for that?
I think it was a bottle of port.
Fair.
I mean,
Your honesty.
a lot of times, like when I'm writing out the broad strokes of our season outlines, and when I was thinking about what the 4-season story was going to be, it was just some drinking and walking around in the world, and then just kind of thinking things through, especially in context with the other games, because there are some things that again don't make sense. That there has to be something going on. So, for one thing, why is it that as verdant and beautiful and pristine and filled with resources that Appalachia is compared to every other Fallout game we've had, why is it nobody talks about it as if it doesn't exist? So there has to be,
soon after the bombs dropped too.
Right. So there has to be a reason for that. Why is it that Stanislaus Braun, for as high up he was at Vault-Tec, for everything that he did between the vaults, the GEC, the camp modules, everything that he contributed to, why would he just go into his vault and go into this simulation and then we never hear of him again? So there has to be a reason for that too. The other thing is, where the fuck is Vault-Tec? Like, all of this was set up. It was all, the foundation was laid. You've got the Enclave at the oil rig. You've got the Enclave that was, still alive for a while in the White Spring Vault. You've got the Enclave up in Raven Rock and in other places. With all of the effort that they put into the plan for what comes next after the end, a lot of things don't make sense. Like, there would be an immediate something that would happen after the war for the new thing to begin, but it never did, because it would be happening right now. And maybe we're heading towards that as far as the official story goes, but right now we're not headed for anything that we know of. There's just a lot of things that just don't pass the logic test. For Vault-Tec, what is the point of setting up all of these experiments if there's not somebody somewhere looking at all of them? So that got me thinking about Vault-Tec still being very active somewhere, Stanislaus Braun still being very active somewhere, monitoring everything that's going on. Because the amount of effort put into these experiments, it doesn't make sense that they were just kind of done and then walked away and then nobody bothered to check in on them. They would have great interest in seeing what's going on in all of these vaults with these experiments. Particularly Braun, who set up the testing parameters. It's not like he was just doing this as part of his job. He had a great vested interest in it. So I had to think that there was a larger plan going on, and there's a reason that Braun becomes cut off and locked in his vault, and just kind of left there and not caring about anything anymore. And we are going to be that reason.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think, so I think a lot of their creativity in some of these podcasts and shows that we've seen, I think it was born out of the lack of NPCs and the lack of interaction with the environment, besides just killing cryptids and stuff when we first started.
Yeah.
Do you think, had Fallout 76 started with NPCs, things would be different now? Do you think it would have, do you think Chad would have been born? Do you think that, because they kind of give us a little bit of a guided story now.
It wouldn't have existed. I can tell you that, because I never felt the need to create a story in any other Fallout game I've ever played, because it becomes a passive experience. You're following a pre-scripted series of events where you're just kind of going around and questing. So you're not thinking about too much. It's more of a casual gaming experience than anything. Whereas what I was confronted with 76 is you're constantly chasing people who you just missed. And that year one story is very much set up like that. And like, okay, there's the Order of Mysteries, and okay, where is she? Oh my God, she's here with her. Oh no, we just missed them. They're both dead, and this is tragic. We get that dangling bit of hope, like people are just over the horizon, and that never happens. And if anything, I think it's important that it was added, because otherwise the experience, as we know, with Fallout 76 in its first year was very niche.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people didn't get it because it was way too much of a change from what we knew before. You had to want to get it and be willing to try and create experiences of your own, either in a sandbox, in role play, or meeting and playing with new people. Which again, you go from something that historically has always been a single player game to something that isn't. People are going to want the same experience they had, even though it's multiplayer. So I think a ton of people, and even to this day, still come to 76 and want Fallout 5 and want it to be Fallout 5. And it's not Fallout 5. It's never going to be Fallout 5. It's an online multiplayer game. So it's going to be designed to be an online multiplayer game. It's going to have elements of a single player experience if you want that, but it's still always going to be that something different.
Which I guarantee we're going to be missing when Fallout 5 does come. We're going to be missing the, multiplayer aspect where, we made all these friends and just the unique experience of Fallout 76.
Yeah, I'm having a problem now enjoying single player games without people to enjoy them with.
Right.
And that's
100%.
not a problem I had before, but having actually made friends and talked to people, and I'll go into games I dug back. I remember loving Dragon Age Inquisition back in the day and diving back into that. And the whole time I'm like, this is great, but I'm kind of lonely.
Right.
Right. Even when you're
That's
feeling
kind of one of
burned
my
out.
favorite things. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Taylor.
Sorry, I was going to say, just really while you were going in with the main point of Fallout 76 being very before NPCs, I guess, because I know we were all playing since beta. That's one of my favorite things with this game, and being such a fan of Fallout in general, is ideally in a sense of growing up with this game. Especially playing from beta, one of my favorite things has been, obviously there's such a great community in the 76 gaming community itself, and one of my favorite things with it is the fact that, one, obviously Chad was able to blossom from this, which is absolutely phenomenal, but it's not just Chad. There's so many Discord servers, which I'm terrible with, but there's so many of them that are so underscored between you look it up for Fallout 76 and there's a bunch of them, and Minecraft had that because it's Minecraft. And one of my favorite things that has really come from this personally is really what Ken was touching on there, where I've always been somebody who's been into video games, but mainly the single player experience, which when they first released that this was going to be multiplayer, everybody was kind of like, oh God, how is this going to go? And then now, just seeing where we is, especially with Nuka World and everything, it's literally just every single update, they're pushing and pushing and pushing to bring so many new aspects, and so many new plot holes are getting filled in. And it's so great to really kind of just age with that game. And I personally have so much love for it, because even on my personal Xbox servers, I have people that I do low-key role play with and stuff like that. And it's so fun to just be able to disengage from reality, from my day job, and be able to do that. And coming in and being a part of the podcast is also just amazing to be able to do that. And with having the love and the community that we have, and between everybody on Twitch and everybody who streams, and it's so amazing to be a part of. And it's so cool to, like I said, really just have aged with 76 as a whole. And I think that it doesn't get, I hate to say it this way, but I feel like the developers almost don't get enough for that. And just from me to them personally, you guys are amazing. So yeah.
I second that.
Yep.
I think even when people are feeling really burnt out and, kind of tired of lack of content or whatever, you're still always looking for a game that's exactly like 76 to play with your friends. So there's nothing that even comes close.
Well, and I remember year one, I was interviewed because of what we had done with Chad, and what we'd done. I think we'd done Bethesda Game Days at this point. We were kind of talking about that on the interview, and uh, my friend who was on this podcast was telling me, he was like, yeah, man, like I bought the game, I logged in, I didn't really understand it, like, I jump in and it's not like a Fallout game, there's no NPCs, like I didn't get it. And I was like, okay, let me break it down for you, and I'd start telling them kind of where we're at in the game. It's, the first vault to open, it's the test vault, it's 25 years, not 200 years, and he kind of starts clicking. He's like, oh yeah, oh yeah, that all makes sense. Why didn't I think about it that way? And I'm like, because you're used to other Fallout games where it clearly spells it out, gives you that path to go. And I told him, I said, that's kind of how the podcast got created. They gave us a blank canvas, and people like Kenny who have that creative ingenuity just went, I can write a story on this because this is funny, and this happened, and this would be cool. That's how it worked, and it came out so beautifully because of that. I don't know, like I remember convincing so many people, like, give it a chance. For one, it's gonna get better, and for two, like, think about what is happening and how much creative space you have in your own realm in this server of Fallout that you know and love. You can create anything.
I think,
especially like with the story. Oh, I'm so sorry. One more thing. Especially with like the story arc and like how everything was like just brought to us, how you gave it like the blank canvas thing. So many people have taken that and went so far with it. I mean, look at where you are with Chad. Look at where we are, and all in these roles of it. And there's so many other opportunities out there. So like my favorite thing that Bethesda did with 76, because I mean, everybody is all excited for Fallout 5. I'm so excited for Fallout 5. I'm absolutely going to play it 100%. But when it boils down to it, 76 personally, to me, I feel is a game that will never be necessarily something that I wouldn't want to pick up because of, one, the friends, the community, and just the creative aspect that it brought to so many other content creators, between VAs, between writers, between editors, between, podcast creators. Like, it opened up such a broad spectrum, and the level that people have taken it to is just absolutely phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's not just us either. I mean, I think we were the first storytelling podcast. I don't know 100% for sure, but when you think of how many there are now, there are so many new podcasts that popped up, all telling Fallout 76 stories of their own, and theater groups, and the Fallout 5.0 with all of the role play groups, Enclave, Brotherhood, Mothman Cultists. There's a Pipe of Life cult. There's a werewolf. There's a werewolf group now who role plays as werewolves. Now that we have that, like, it's crazy. And it's interesting that quote that I often go back to, talking about the stories in Fallout 76 are the ones we tell ourselves, that Todd said at E3. They still follow that because Mark Tucker said a very revealing thing in a Kev DeWitt interview that he did, where he teased two things. One, there is a long-term overarching story to Fallout 76. And I'm really curious to see what that is, because he said that the seeds have been planted, and some of the story elements are already there. So I'm still curious to see where we are headed as far as the story of Fallout 76 is. The other thing that he said, though, is sometimes with things, they try and balance what they do, because even in the instance of encountering another player, where there's a negative interaction, or, your house gets blown up, they try and balance some of that stuff, because that becomes a story. You had an experience that was a story. whether it's good or bad or whatever, it's still a story. So they're still very much looking at this, like everything that happens in the world, every nonsense thing, people running around in their underwear, beating robots, people using your stuff and teabagging you while you're sleeping. That's all a story. So they try and
You
kind
do
of
fake
balance that stuff.
protests in the world.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
I love that.
Yeah, Record
Legendary
Renee.
sub.
Thank you.
Get Gud Starry Sora.
Thank you for the sub. And yeah, Record Renee, they're it's Howl.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so long-winded wise, that's Fallout. That's episode 4. The other thing, so then we get into our very first two-parter, and what became our most long-standing recurring character, or character type. So episodes 5 and 6, I wanted to try something a little different. So I wanted to do an homage to 80s horror. And we were coming towards summertime, and I wanted to basically put us all in a scenario like, okay, we need jobs. We're out of the vault. It's like the experience of life here, where we're all kind of getting our first summer jobs. So we're introduced to the concept of the Sickle Man, with Simon and the gang, everyone ending up at Ghoul Scout camp at Camp Crystal Lake. When we're introduced to Brian. Scene 2, we're introduced to Ray, the Fallout 5-0, his character, at Lover's Leap, where Karen and Eddie are getting it on in the Corvega when there's a radio broadcast. Now from Mad Dog Mitch Mormon talking about some of mysterious disappearances in the Crystal Lake area. Commander Johns of the 5-0 has issued fast travel advisories and a curfew for the areas. They follow up on leads about a mysterious sack-hooded figure spotted in the area. And then Eddie starts telling the story of Camp Wanna Grind a Lot, which is our own kind of take on every classic slasher trope from Friday the 13th to Halloween. And we ended up building on the Sickle Man in terms of the story of what is actually going on with the Appalachia experiment. So here, just like in Friday the 13th 1, the killer, spoiler, is not in fact the Sickle Man. It's someone using the Sickle Man legend to wake us the hell up. We later find out, episode 5 and the beginning part of episode 6, it's all of these suspects. No one really knows who the Sickle Man is, who's doing the killing. And at the end of episode 6, it's revealed to be the Overseer, and she just loses her shit on us. She goes off. Because think of, she raised us. And the very first thing that we do, we go out there, we start killing each other, we rob each other, we're using, destructive nuclear devices just willy-nilly. So she completely loses it.
So can we just talk about the Overseer real quick? And I don't mean the character. I mean Mary. Can we just say how amazing Mary is? Like when we were in Boston and she was doing her live performance, I'll never forget how many times she had to say Stanislaus Braun to get it right.
Yeah.
I just loved that so much.
Yeah, Mary is the Overseer. Sorry, I was reading Shadowlord. I'm not sure what the views were for that one, but I know with your expertise in that genre really set up a precedent that people coming back more and more for became the Halloween episodes. Yeah, you're right. I live to write horror, and I think that's why people really love those episodes. I feel like my inner October child gets to come out to play, and we got a little bit of that in this one with a lot of stylistically I changed the music, the building up the threat and tension. We had a lot of that in the script. It was something new I wanted to try, and it ended up working really good. So yeah, we're introduced to the characters of the Fallout 5-0. Chad, Susie, and Ella, off on their adventures. Chad wanting to take Susie to summer camp. So now, you're starting to see little bits and pieces of him becoming a father figure to her, where he wants her to have a better experience growing up than he did. We had another cheeky commercial, this time talking about buff tats. with such charming lines as Susan saying, "Oh, Jim, look at you go. You're throbbing and getting bigger all over." And Jim saying, "Look out, Susan, I'm almost finished." Yes, Dark Noise, buff tits.
Oh, buff tits.
We're introduced, Jake and Amada finally find each other. They finally find Simon for the first time, and there's that awkward first meeting at orientation, where he finally catches up to the two of them, and they were supposed to leave together, and he's had nothing but a really hard time.
Mm-hmm. And Jake didn't help.
No.
It was a struggle. It was the whole struggle and a half for that poor man.
Yeah, it was nice that they finally got a chance to get back together. I did the character of Butch. That was quickly killed off in the archery range. So I went with kind of a New Jersey accent there. That was the end of him, which was created and then killed quickly. Yep, and here we go, introduced to the character of Marianne. Well, hey there, Marianne Belts. And I've mentioned this before. Brian is based on a real person. Yeah. I think the person didn't actually talk like Brian. I took some liberty there, but every Boy Scout troop has that overachieving, constantly like enthusiastic, positive person, that they're just so over the top and glowy and bubbly that you just really want to rain on their parade because they're just so obnoxious about it. And Brian is the perfect personification of that. He has all the merit badges. He's the ultimate dweeb. So he blends in really well with Marianne. Yep, and then we have the ukulele, which once you started playing that in the audition, Jess, that had to be part of the character.
Yeah. I don't know if the ukulele is Marianne's ukulele, but we definitely came up with that.
Yeah, let's be real here. The design of that, if you're looking at it right now on the screen, it's pretty dead on.
Yeah, it really is.
We'll just call that an homage.
We're just gonna call Pete and go, yeah, bro, we appreciate you thinking of us, okay?
We're gonna just brotherhood you or what is it? Yeah, brotherhood. We know.
Yeah, I mean, look at the design that Craig came up with for the ukulele and the shape of the bottle, and yeah, you can now get them in game.
Yeah, which I did not realize that until I saw Wreck-It Renee post that.
I didn't either. When Renee shared that, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "That's the ukulele."
That was the first thing I thought of because I saw her post and was like, "Yep, they copied us. Yep, this is the second time in record I can say they copied us."
Inspirational.
Inspiration. Episode 6 picks up where we left off with the Mothman. Simon, Jake, and Amada. We got Brian. Oh yeah, hiking with the Ghoul Scouts.
Can I say?
Yeah.
You write and I know Mark would say the same thing. The way you write versus like delivering lines as Marianne and Brian, those are some challenging paragraphs especially when they're going on like their little rants about, fun facts and stuff. They're like tongue twisters. They're amazing. But I know Brian or Mark and I sometimes have to do a couple takes on those because doing those in character, because they just go on and on and on with all the, the big scientific words and everything. It's challenging.
I do that on purpose.
Yeah, I knew it.
But also, you need the characters to be that irritating. Like,
Yes.
I want you to be irritated reading them so that you sound like you're irritated. That energy becomes part of the performance. But moreover, I want that energy to transfer to the listener. Like, I want them to say, "Oh, Jesus Christ, here comes Brian again. Please shut the fuck up." Right? Just please. It's characters that you love to hate, but love to hate. Those two characters in particular have sprung up everywhere. So many different artists, Turtle and Shia, our Dweller and his dog, and they're characters that artists, Fallout fan artists in the community are creating their own kind of fun stories with everything that Brian and Marianne get up to with the Scouts. Just kind of off having their own adventures, which I think is awesome. That the characters are that well beloved that
Yes.
they get kind of their own spin-offs with people. I love that. Yeah, and then we come finally at the end of this with the Sickle Man, the big wrap up when the overseer finally lets loose. You damned kids, decades of planning, of shaping, teaching, and cultivating. I had a directive from Vaultec, secure the region's 3 nuclear silos. We had to make sure they didn't fall into the wrong hands. I knew I couldn't do it alone, so I asked you, my family, for help. And what did you do? You blew up each other's bases. You became cannibals, opened fight clubs and brothels. You murdered each other again and again, gambled, started playing with nuclear weapons like they were fun and funny. What the fuck is wrong with you people? And you 3, I had high hopes for you. Instead of opening a farm, Amada becomes a thief and a raider. Dwellers lost their junk to you because you couldn't be bothered to get your own. So that's what Amada's been up to. Jake finds his best friend and feeds him Tits McGee, and then goes on a murder spree. Simon with the cannibalism and bodies, murdering Chad for using a workbench in your shack. Really? I didn't give a crap about Caps. I found this outfit at the house. I saw you all struggling. It was me who repaired the mainframe at camp and got the bots going. And it would be too good an opportunity for all to ignore. I'd get you all back together and do the Wasteland a favor. Get rid of you all. Yeah. So that's the overseer completely flipping out. And then she teases what eventually was going to become the season finale here. He's waiting for you. The experiment is just beginning. You should have let me kill you. Then we came to our first mini-sode. Thank you for the subscription. Which was Graham's Harvest Barbecue, with Mark voicing Graham. That was a fun one.
Yes.
I wanted to do some of these little standalone stories. The other one that we did was probably the most wholesome one, where Chad takes Susie trick-or-treating.
Yes.
And arriving at a person's house who didn't have any candy to offer, so they end up just dropping artillery on it. Another popular episode, I think because of the name, is episode 7 with Moose Patsy and the horrors of the Atomic Shop Purgatory.
Oh, the Purgatory episode.
One of my
Yep.
favorites.
Yep. This one is very Twilight Zone-esque, hence the cover art. So, Simon runs back into Vince after finally catching up with Patsy and Moose, who kill him, by the way. We're also introduced to Simon's silent sidekick, Legs. And Legs is designed to personify the players that you encounter in world that in year one, microphones were constantly on. So, Legs talking and you hearing potato chips is the experience that we had in year one, where there was, if you're talking, it's being heard in the Wasteland. So you could hear all kinds of stuff, which was kind of neat in the beginning. That's how I ended up meeting so many friends, because you'd hear people talking like in the distance. You'd be like, "Ooh, what's going on over there?" So you'd kind of, sneak over and listen in, and you'd say hi to people. They'd talk to you, and either they'd shoot you, or sometimes they'd be talking about really inappropriate stuff that you're overhearing, which adds to the experience. But yeah, so Simon finally gets a friend named Legs. There's a moment where he's confused and surprised when Legs pulls an entire piano out of his ass and just materializes it in thin air and starts playing it. Which talks to our meta ability to just conjure objects from thin air.
Yes.
And then Simon finally ends up inside the atomic shop for the first time. And this is where things get a little screwy. So there's a very specific reason that at the point of death, our characters die and end up in the atomic shop. And the first few times you die, you don't remember until eventually, after multiple times, that starts bleeding through and you remember being there. So Simon dies, wakes up inside this gigantic, endless warehouse. And you've got the shadows of the damned, the shadows of the band around you, saying the kinds of things that were still being said on Reddit, and that were even in that beginning episodes. People were leaving comments about Fallout 76 as if it had anything to do with us or the show. So we were getting comments when I was dropping episodes like, Fallout 76 sucks. And so I took all of that and I wrote it into the script. So things like, you aren't original, stop trying, Fallout 76 sucks. These are all of the things that the shadows are whispering as Simon, who runs into Vince, who's been trapped in the atomic shop, are running from them. They run into a vendor bot, and there's a price to be paid in order to respawn in the world. And the price is quite literally blood. So Simon ends up giving his little pound of flesh, leaves Vince trapped there after stealing atoms from him, and returns to the world. So, of course, that leaves Vince pretty pissed off. It ends with the great punchline of Simon waking up, and the thing that he randomly bought in the atomic shop now exists in the real world, which is that pink princess bed that's just kind of sitting there terrifying in the corner.
Yes.
Episode 8 was our throwback episode where we flash back to what was the final Halloween celebrated in the vault before Reclamation Day. It was a lot of fun doing this one. Like we got to experience trick-or-treating and a Halloween party in the vault. We had yet another of Moose's long-standing jokes where he's constantly going after, like, before he was into passing.
Moose's comedy hour?
Yes.
That's what it was.
Where Moose was really trying to woo Betsy, and it always goes wrong. Every song that he sings, every gesture that he does, it just goes wrong.
It's
He
terrible.
tried his best.
Hey, all I'm saying, it's gonna be okay. Betsy is just fine.
There's there's also a really important piece that happens right here that doesn't pay off until season 4. So the gang after the party, go down into a level that had been destroyed. There was an explosion. Everyone was killed. There was a cave-in. Most of the bodies were never recovered. The other thing that also didn't make sense to me is we're not the best and brightest. Even though the Vault 76 experiment specifically says that we are, we have awards for the dumbest shit. Like clean toilets and great hair. Like these are the softest, most ridiculous awards for anything. And when you first wake up, when you're playing the game, if you go look in the display cabinet, like the awards that you get are stupid. They don't make sense based on how intelligent you're supposed to be. And I would argue that our actions out in the Wasteland aren't very intelligent either.
Well, Patsy's clearly not the best or brightest.
Yeah, so we're definitely not the best and brightest. So once again, if the experiment is supposed to be, or our mission is to go out there and restart civilization, once again, we're too stupid to accomplish that anyway, unless there were people who were supposed to guide us and lead us. So for our lore purposes, there were, and there was an entire level of teachers and engineers and architects and leaders who were supposed to take over from the overseer on Reclamation Day, where these people would lead us out of the Wasteland and help us to accomplish that goal. Mysteriously, someone killed them all, planted bombs, and just killed everyone on that level. And the ghost that they end up meeting there, that Kevin plays, talked about the fact that he never saw the person again. He saw him only once, and he had a very noticeable scar. That person is going to become really important, and eventually you're going to find out who that person is. But once again, the wheels of our 4th season arc were planted early on here, and that was kind of our first episode, digging into the Halloween-y stuff. Eat became really well known in the early years and garnered press and got Bethesda's attention for a cannibal role-playing faction. And because of that, I mean, out of role-playing groups, they were the ones that were the biggest and most well-known at the time. So it made sense for them to be part of the experience, since so many of these episodes were kind of chronicling what it was like in year one. So Simon, at this point in time, things are settled with Jake and Amada. Things are actually going really well. They meet an aristocrat who's now living at the White Spring, and kill him because Jake, Simon, and Amada are awful people. And you've got, it's Thanksgiving, so, you're getting scenes with Patsy, Moose, Chad, Susie, and Ella, Punch. Everyone's getting ready for Thanksgiving. They're planning a big trip to go hunt turkey. And Punch says he has a perfect spot. What they don't know is that the turkey is, in fact, a scorch beast. And so it's the first time the gang is actually fighting one as far as our story goes. You've got... we're finally introduced to Abraham and Lord Grawl. And the other thing that I tried to do as far as our story went before now, of course, there are people living in the White Spring that they've added with the pit update. At that point in time, it didn't make sense for us to all be, living in our underwear in a wood hut when there's a perfectly preserved, pristine hotel, like right in the center of the world that's really well protected and fortified. It didn't make any sense for it to sit there without people being there. So for our purposes, I had original landowners, the descendants of the wealthy and elite, become a kind of a cult of their own. So anyone who traced their lineage to aristocracy took over the White Spring and moved in there, with the Eat serving as their unit that would deal with problems, their kind of own private protective army that would guard the aristocrats while they lived in happiness inside the hotel. We also had, I miss the Vault 69 gym. So at this point in time, Chad and the gang were still doing the Brofit Con, where they were just depriving people of caps and junk and allowing them to kill themselves in various ways during exercises. Mr. Juicer. A sentient talking juice machine with such memorable lines as "Give me those veggies, shove them right inside my metal head face. Splash that mole milk all over my moist glass dome." And Patsy fighting with the thing, where she's talking about he's kind of thrusting it out at me.
Yes. It was very forceful.
Mr. Juice's final line is, "I'm all juiced out. Clean yourself up. Hit me up when you want to juice me." Yeah, gotta love that Mr. Juicer.
Job well done. He understands his role.
That's right.
That's how it works.
Simon, at this point in time, because of the cannibalism, is confronted with what became his kind of mini arc for season 1. So because of something that Jake did to him, which is feeding him Tits McGee and making him a cannibal, something I didn't find out until later, which is kind of cool. So to me, another thing that didn't make sense, and I'm glad they thought of it, and I kind of wish we had this. We can become cannibals in Fallout 76, but we never become Wendigos, which doesn't make any sense. And that's kind of the story of the Gourmands in Fallout 76, when we head to Wendigo Cave. But, we can do that without transforming. What I later found out is that the developers originally had intended us to have mutation effects based on specific criterion. So if we continued to use the cannibal perk, we would eventually become a Wendigo, which would have been pretty fucking cool. And I would have loved that. You could also, if you became heavily mutated or radiated, you would actually turn into a super mutant with exposure to FEV.
That's cool.
It was all of these were early concepts that didn't end up making it, but I thought, damn, that's kind of cool. So Simon in season 1 is struggling with that, where leaning into cannibalism and just, willy-nilly eating people like he does after he eats Brian back at scout camp at the end of the Sickleman arc. Finally, Jake and him kind of tuck into Brian. Simon starts to lose control of that and almost kills Amada, and is so upset by doing that. And her reaction, he feels a rejection there. So he ends up taking off and running away. And it's there that he runs back into their old teacher, Mr. Simmons, who shows up in a carriage from the White Spring. And picture the audio cues of this. You hear the clomping of hooves. There are no horses left alive in the world that we know
Where'd
of.
you get those coconuts?
So what exactly is pulling the carriage? The answer is people. And the visual of that is a little unsettling, which just goes to show how scary the aristocrats and Eat are. So Simon ends up going to the White Spring, realizes that he has heritage and standing there, and ends up joining. There are times in our stories when we get kind of mundane things that are just fun little scenes. And a great one is Simon attending a meeting of the apocalyptic aristocracy, the Eat Guild's yearly Thanksgiving meeting. And it's like the Academy Awards for cannibalism and raiding. So they're handing out awards to people. There was a great line with, there we go.
For how good cannibals they are.
Yeah, you got Chef David presenting delicacies, Simon
Mhm.
realizing that Legs is in the cage, first annual banquet at the establishment of Appalachia Taste Testers. Yeah, and that it ends that episode with Simon wanting to get Legs out before they eat him. It picks back up again a little ways down the road. So we had a little bit of a break, and what threw us off is when Bethesda reached out and asked us to do the live show at this point in time, which completely kind of threw our release schedule out the window. So I could switch to work on the live show. That's why there's this weird break between that episode and then when we finally concluded that, which was like 6 months later. When we finally got around to part 2. So in between then, we had episode 10, which was the dark Christmas story where we end up meeting Santa, and it was like little scenes. It was Amada having a wonderful Christmas where she runs back into Betsy and she kills her and robs her. So we got some fun. We get to see Amada as a raider. Simon meeting the Mothman priest at the Festival of Lights in Point Pleasant. And Mark did an amazing job as Santa Claus with that one.
Yes.
So good.
Can I tell a fun, quick story?
Yeah,
about
of course.
that? So, Mark did such an amazing job as Santa Claus. I actually reached out to him and Taylor and was like, "Hey, can y'all do Mrs. and Mr. Claus? I'm going to write a quick little script. I'm going to play it for my nieces and nephews so that they believe Santa Claus is real."
Oh,
And it
that's
went
awesome.
He's not?
Phenomenal. They did such an amazing job. My
That's
nieces and
I
nephews
was so
still believe Santa
excited.
exists, and it's amazing.
That's awesome.
They feel like they got a real voicemail from Santa.
Yeah, Mark did an amazing job with that. So we kind of, while I was working on the live show, we ended up having the gang get together, and you cranked out 3 minisodes in a short period of time. So we had that really great episode with Brian and Marianne, Sophia, Mark's daughter, playing Becky the Ghoul, who in the Sickle Man story became kind of the bully to Susie, and made the mistake of taking Ella from her. So as vengeance, in the most some of the most unhinged vengefulness that we've seen from Susie, Susie throws her down to the ghouls living underneath the outhouses at the camp, and that's kind of the last we see of her until Brian finally respawns, gets her out of the hole beneath the outhouse, and she's completely covered in mess. And we also see a little bit of Brian and Marianne showing just how badass they really are by making really short work of raiders. As geeky as they are, kind of the funny thing about the two of them, and we see a little bit of that later on in season 2 with the Bryognak mini-sode arc, where we see just how badass Marianne is in her own way. They know builds like in a way that players don't pay attention. So they're optimized for pretty any situation. So they pull out their legacy gear and they kill the raiders. Minisode 4 was Simon running into Mr. Messenger, everyone's least favorite quest in Fallout 76, mostly because of how broken it was, and it may still be. I haven't done it since then, but it's literally you're just acting as a postman to get Mr. Messenger to deliver a message to people that are long since dead. But what makes him funny is that, and it becomes part of the story, like Mr. Messenger would literally go into a house for some reason along the way and then just continue driving against the wall without going anywhere. And it ends up failing the quest.
I don't think I've seen that in a long time.
The minisode or the
no,
event?
Mr. Messenger.
I wonder if they took it out because of how broken it was.
Yeah, J-Star's saying they finally turned it off.
Oh, so now I miss it.
Now it's nostalgia.
Yeah.
Remember how broken it was that we yelled
For
at the
anybody,
computer
for
screen?
anybody here who never got a chance to play it, listen to the mini-sode, and that's pretty much what the experience was.
100%.
It's like spot on. That's the worst part about it too. Like, oh my gosh.
It's Tea Time was a really, really fun episode that Jessica Duvall and Christian Moore wrote together. That is just one of those fun little episodes where, you know, as much as the relationship develops between Punch and Moose, Punch develops this great kind of big brother relationship with Susie. This is one of those fun ones where they go off on an adventure just to go get some tea. And it goes about as well as you'd expect. And then we finally came back to part 2, where we got we had episode 11 finally, The Most Dangerous Game and No Fisto, where Simon moves into the White Spring, ends up getting an adorable tiny little helper that I kind of want to bring back, and also his first shower since Vault 76, enjoying the facilities at the White Spring before he goes to break out legs. Is captured by Lord Grawl, and if you've ever seen the movie or read the book The Most Dangerous Game, which I highly recommend, we get a little flavor of that where Simon becomes the prey. So their Thanksgiving feast is literally hunting down a person. So Simon meets Lord Grawl again at the Black Lodge. The Black Bear Lodge is set loose and is hunted down. At this point in time, Simon is struggling with the monster that is developing in him, meaning losing control of his cannibalism. This introduced the character of Slick Willy. I don't know why I wanted to create a water park that wasn't with Wavy Willards. I think it was just so I could insert the joke Slick Willy. So the name of the water park ended up being Slick Willy, with one of the funniest commercials that we've ever had, that you worked on, Jess, with Mark. With the jingle that you had there playing the ukulele was a lot of fun. And then finally we get the showdown and Simon's moment where he has to make a choice to either transform, as Lord Grawl does. He come to find out does have the ability to turn into Wendigo. And there's this great kind of duel moment on top of Slick Willy. So they're literally standing on a water saw in which the water slide comes out of Slick Willy's metal pants. So they're up there fighting, and Simon makes the choice to die as a man instead of a monster. So he jumps from the top, drowns, and of course respawns. But in the process of that, he ends up gaining the ability to reshuffle his genetic deck. So he simply turns off his ability to be a cannibal and equipped Aqualung so he could swim around down there. So Lord Grawl thinks he's dead. Simon comes back, kills Lord Grawl, and that's the last that we see of Lord Grawl, or so we think.
That jingle was probably one of my favorite moments, writing that and then sending it to Mark, and then
So
the
good.
editing you did on it was freaking fantastic. But yeah, I'm pretty proud of that one. That was a lot of fun.
I have to
Minisodes.
say that's probably personally my favorite. Just the dynamic with it. It was just like, that's probably my favorite episode from the entire season. You know, if we're looking for that.
Something else really important happened in that episode. So music we'd use for the intro, outro, and then in between scenes. That episode was the first time that I ever used music that worked to build up the drama and emotion of a scene. So I commissioned this beautiful piece of music from a singer, and the scene in which Simon takes his leap and Amada and Jake give up on Simon because, they show up at the water park thinking to save him. And what they are confronted with is, Simon having killed MacGyver style everyone who went after him. So it's just a bloodbath. So Jake and Amada assume that means that Simon has become a full monster and he's no longer human, which is why they go to the 5-0 to turn him in, and that begins the trial. But the way that the music built during that scene did such a great job at elevating the whole thing. And it was the first time that we did that, and we've done that a lot since then, particularly with the Halloween episodes. The music becomes a real key part of the production there.
Yes.
And then we finally come to our bitter end, which is year 1, Crimes Against Appalachia. The show that we did in Boston for Bethesda, I did 8 different scripts before finally I was both happy and also had cut it down enough, because we had a very specific time frame where we could not go over. So I had to make sure that the episode, fit within the time frame. And because of that, there was so much great stuff that I had to cut from the script that I wasn't happy with. So if you actually watch the live show as we performed it in Boston, which is up on our YouTube channel, but it's also in the podcast feed as a bonus episode. That one isn't canon, it's more bonus because I added in some extra stuff, whereas this one is. I later did a director's cut that inserted all of the stuff that I cut back in. So we get more character development at the Brofit gym. We find out more about what Simon's been up to, and a lot more scenes that take place in the courtroom. The build up to this, of course, is the arrest of Simon, the arrest of Moose's gang. Jake and Amada turn Simon in. So the judge, Pete Hines' character, who had been a janitor in the vault, sets himself up with District Attorney Malcolm Fletcher as the de facto base of law and order in Appalachia to try and restore some order, considering how crazy we've all been. So working in tandem with the 5-0, they've set up this, Department of Justice in a world where one doesn't exist. The problem is there's more going on here. During the course of the trial, the overseer, who's been locked up in solitary confinement the entire time, finally comes out and starts teasing a little bit of the story that Vault 76 being a fake, as a false control vault, that there's actually an experiment going on. Pete Hines' character, and Pete works for Vault-Tec. He's been part of this whole thing the entire time. He immediately takes action to get her out of the courtroom, get the reporters out of the courtroom, and then just end the trial there, and then condemn Simon and Chad's gang. At which point, in typical fashion, Simon comes out with a scrap kit and introduces the concept of teleporting for the first time. So the scrap kits that exist in Fallout 76, I wanted to find a way to explain fast travel. So for our intents and purposes, scrap kits use advanced technology to have like a pocket wormhole that could attach to your shelter where you had a stash, so it has an end receiving point in your stash kit. We've used that a few times. We've used it to escape the Sickle Man. We've used it to escape the Judge on multiple occasions. The Crimes Against Appalachia one was an important culmination of kind of all of the terrible things that we all did that first year before season 2 kind of started. And that was the conclusion of season 2, with the exception of there There was one mini-sode that we did after that, where we were joined by Ashley J, who played Maya, with Chad, going looking for a Christmas present. That was a great story that he ended up writing. A nice mini-sode there.
She's pretty. She's great.
She really is. Yeah, she plays Meg, head of the Crater Raiders this season, which you're going to be hearing her in the next episode. Rusty Pick Raiders Sugar Grove Secrets that I started polishing yesterday, actually. Now that the Christmas special is done, and that was our season 1. Boy, when we do season 2, you're going to have a lot of questions, and we're going to have to do that one in 2 parts because there's a shitload of stuff to talk about for season 2.
There's also a crap ton more people coming on board in season 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So where we're headed from here, I can give you here. I'm going to give you a little tease of something now that you're all here and been sitting patiently. I'm going to open. Hang on, I'm going to open Adobe Audition here. And I'm going to tease you with the opening of Rusty Pick Raiders and Sugar Grove Secrets, which is our next episode. So we'll remember where we left off. So Chad and the gang, as far as where we are story-wise, is let's see here, where were we? There we go. Let me get to the point. And here, let me change those. Browser. Change this to Adobe Audition. Size you. Nope. Yep. Let's do screen. There we go. All right. So remember story-wise where we left off. So at the end of the Bryognak saga, Moose and Punch had gone out, and the entire very long saga with Brian and everything else was to simply get recipes. So the Rusty Pick is going to be reopening, having their grand reopening, which we're finally going to see in this episode, where Chad's gang finally have a home, and it's going to be filled with people and music, and everything that kind of comes with that. But more importantly, we're introduced to a lot of the characters that we know from Fallout 76. So since we started doing the rest of these episodes for charity, the original voice actors were kind enough to come back and join us for reprising a lot of these characters. This initial opening here. There we go. If you've played Fallout 3, this opening will be very familiar, because this opening takes place in the capital Wasteland. We get a little bit more about the origin of Devon's character, Atomic Alice, that we were introduced to in the last episode, Beer Bros and Brahmin Writing, played by Lady Devon from Bethesda. In Fallout 76 lore, so the Crater Raiders are part of the original raider groups that Meg had led them out of Appalachia before all of the raiders ended up dying here. And lore-wise, they went in a bunch of different places. They went all the way up to Boston. They went to Washington, D.C. So they've been traveling around. And we never hear too much of that, so I wanted to get a flavor of that. I wanted to go back to the game that I love, which is Fallout 3. It was my first entry in Fallout. So this whole first scene takes place in the capital Wasteland. In fact, it takes place at a very specific street on the capital Wasteland. And I'm going to tease you with a little bit of that right now. Listen close.
I don't want to set the world on fire. I just want to start a flaming
Washington, D.C. What a shithole. Ratchet. Where the hell are we?
Well, fuck if I know. This map Scaver drew with goddamn crayons isn't entirely accurate.
You probably should have kept him alive then.
Meh. I don't like his face.
What's the hold up now? Old wrench face lose her way again?
Oh, I swear to God, Meg. Wanna cut her?
Lay off her, kid. Now's not the time. Keep your eyes peeled, Sheena.
We need to move, boss. We're vulnerable on these side streets. Hey, dipshits. You guys scout on up ahead.
Go ahead. Yell a little louder, Sheena. Christ. Those super mutants are all over the damn place. Keep it down. Come on, Ren. Let's clear the streets ahead.
Go off with your papi, mamita. Try not to shoot any of us, see?
Okay, Dad, I'm ready.
Safety off, kid.
Whoops. Jesus Christ, just read a street sign. Corner of G Street and Executive Avenue. It's not rocket science.
Executive Ave? Oh, shit. You know where we are? If anything's left, scav of the century.
Stay together, damn it.
Hey, Sheena. Way to round up our corillo.
Shut up, Raph. Dumbass Caffey.
Caffey? You mean cafre. Spin the wheel and try again, chica.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Hold up. Stop. Whole block is Rad City, man. Ooh, we go any further and we won't need flashlights ever again.
Damn. Have a look at the seat of democracy. From White House to Green Crater.
Damn! Direct hit. Not much left.
Shit on a shingle that would have been amazing. Think of the tech they would have had down there.
Boss, I'm telling you, we need to move.
Yeah, boss. I agree, we gots to move.
Yeah, Sheena, give me a minute. Hell, let me see. If memory serves me correctly, Penn Ave should be right up ahead. We bang a left and our mark is on the right.
Yo, I'm with Sheena. We need to get a move on, man. Those super mutants aren't like the pussyfoot ones back in Appalachia, man. These bastards are tough. I'm not looking forward to crossing paths with them again.
Neither am I, girl. We get in, blow it, and get the hell out. Quick and easy.
What's with all the caution tape? Let's just blow through there. Blow the face off that damned building, and if anything comes looking for trouble, let's crater them.
You keep that trigger-happy rad shooter on your goddamn hog, AA. I'm not asking again. We're not having no repeat of your Bunker Hill stunt.
What can I say? I saw a face I didn't like.
Oh, haha.
I don't need to roll back and repeat, do I?
Yeah.
Diehards, rev them up, roll them out.
Wepa! Let's go!
Bingo, bango, bungo. Look what we have here. Pennsylvania Avenue.
Knees and elbows, diehards. Gather round. Tonight, we take this tall-ass concrete lady for a night on the town. Meet the Metro National Bank. Of the 5 banks in good old D.C., she was the biggest bitch around. But before she was the Metro... Munch, where you at? Time for a little history lesson. Tell them what you told me.
Well now, let me see. Oh yeah. So, before this here building was a bank, it was something far, far more important. The United States Treasure Building. Before Fort Knox was built back in 19-something or other, all of the U.S. government's gold and silver reserves were parked right here. Now don't let this concrete lady fool you, because behind those windows sits one of the greatest vaults ever made. Not only are we talking gold and silver, but this is where the government keeps its most valuable treasures and secrets. We're talking historical artifacts, rare paintings.
I told you before, I ain't interested in Lincoln's yard sale leftovers. We're in it for the gold, silver, and jewels.
And I'll stop there. This, I had so much fun. I went back and revisited downtown DC to check out some of the locations, and the downtown DC Metro Bank is in Fallout 3 on Pennsylvania Avenue. So if you play Fallout 3, you'll see exactly where I'm setting this story. So everything that happens in this cold open is based on everything and every threat that is in around that area. But moreover, the way in which we see Pennsylvania Avenue at that point in time in the future when we finally play Fallout 3 is because of what happens right here, right now. And I'll leave that thought there. But it's, so they're seeing the ruins of the White House. And at this point in time, the Crater Raiders are pulling a bank heist that goes quite wrong. And the National Treasury Building was originally in that area near that street, but Munch, because he's such a weird conspiracy dude, had it completely wrong. So we're introduced to, the Crater Raiders that we meet. So you got Raph, you got Sheena, Meg, of course, and Ren and her father, Raven. We meet Ren at the crater. So it's just fun introducing a few of the different characters. This guy with the beard.
Can't wait. I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, I am too. It's a really fun open to the story, and it's a great story as well. This episode will also be one of two that brings back Ferret Bowden's character, the Archivist. He'd recorded both of these episodes before passing away, unfortunately. But he's a hero in them, which I think is justice. So between this episode and the other one, Meanwhile, the Nuclear Winter, he comes back to save the day once more.
Amazing that his family let us use those still.
Yeah, it's 100%.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a very nice tribute to probably one of my favorite people that's worked for 76 personally.
Yeah, and thank you, Shadow Lore. I try and be as respectful of the actual lore writing as possible while trying to find my own way to work around it. So that's it for teases and where we're headed next. I am really excited for the Battle of Appalachia. The orchestral score for that alone, those episodes are going to be Lord of the Rings scale in terms of the twists and turns of what that battle is going to be. And there's a lot of things that you're not going to see coming. And I'm
so excited.
I will leave it at that. And then we're going to take a break between seasons 2 and 3 to do a Starfield podcast. And there's another podcast project that I've been wanting to do. I thought about it this year, and I want to do it this coming year. I want to do a podcast about mental health in gaming called The Mental Gamer, and bring on, proper people who are specializing in mental health and therapy and mindfulness and all these kind of things. I think so often stuff that we struggle with bleeds into content creation, much less gaming. And I think it could do some good. So that's kind of a fun, goofy project that I want to work on. In between, thankfully, with the Starfield podcast, which is anthology style, with the exception of a few episodes I'm writing, all I'm doing is editing them. So that'll give me a little bit of a break to do some other stuff.
Takes a little load off when you're not lead creative on every aspect.
Yeah, like they're picking their cast, and I'm like, yeah, great. Just give me your audio and I'll put it together. I'm really excited about that because the story styles would be all over. Like I had so much fun with our Halloween anthology. I had story concepts for 4 times as many stories as we actually had time to do. There were stories that I'd wanted to do that we just didn't have time for.
There's always next year, Ken.
There is.
He's like, no, I'm retiring. You just don't know yet.
One story that I really, really wanted to do was such a great fucking idea. I started thinking about a pumpkin patch, and the story opens. This kid's mom passes away, and he has this kind of weird, estranged relationship with his dad, and comes home for the funeral. And in trying to repair his relationship with his dad, he heads Peter Ennis. He and his dad head out to close the lake house they had growing up. So it's this old, family lake house, an old farm that had been in the family for generations. And it gets into this weird territory where, particularly at the fall time of year, people take stock of things. Fall is very synonymous with thinking about mortality, and in light of losing his mom, who always tried to defend his dad, the kid's trying to understand why his dad was so aloof and distant and just mean growing up. And he finally finds out when they realize that the pumpkin patch that has always been on the farm, something happens to it on Halloween that has happened to it every Halloween as long as the land has been theirs. And it becomes a temporary purgatory where it is the sad task of the family, and it always has been, that the pumpkins become the shapes and faces lit by this baleful light, this jack-o'-lantern light of the deceased of that year.
Oh.
That cannot move on until they confess their greatest secrets. And so has been the sad task of this family to listen and release them. So there's this weird point where, and he doesn't expect his mother to be there because she was a good person. So he ends up finding one that's his mother, and there's this weird moment. I don't know, I started to think a little bit about a pumpkin patch purgatory, and I thought it would be an interesting take. Awkward silence.
Well, I was going to ask a question about the mod, but I didn't know if you'd said anything or like if that was still secret.
The mod, yep, thank you for reminding me. So the mod, we now have a Fallout 4 mod that is 100% complete and playable. I won't be dropping it until after our Season 2 finale for a very specific reason, in that it has... my half-baked ideas are compelling. Look, if I have to say it out loud as opposed to you reading or listening to it, it sometimes comes out weird. But I promise you, it was a damn good story.
It sounds good.
The mod is fully complete, but I can't release it until after because there are loads of spoilers in it. Once I do, though, so once our Season 2 finale is, I'll drop it and you can play it. And it has every single episode, every minisode, plus hours and hours of bonus content that will only be available for the mod. So there are some commercials, there's some new radio programs, stuff that is really, really hilarious. we did kind of a David Attenborough style Appalachia in the wild, in which it's literally just this English proper narrator narrating the mating ritual of the majestic red-backed Mirelurk queen.
Oh my god!
It is.
Awesome.
Once he finished recording for it, and I mean he's wonderful, BAFTA nominated. Oliver is just fantastic, but he delivers it with such polish and pomp. So the way in which he's delivering it, paired with like the fact that she's spraying a vault dweller who just happened to build his camp near there. she's basically it's quite funny.
Good stuff. That's what people want to hear.
This is what you came for. This is the experience you expect from us. We are going to raid. I will be back tomorrow night with the very last broadcast that I'm going to be doing for the year. And actually the last time that you're going to see me until, or hear me until February. I'm taking the entire month of January off. I'm uninstalling social media apps. I'm going away for a little bit. To edit and write, because there are 2 episodes that have been sitting on my desk for a while I was working on the Christmas show. So I want to get Rusty Pick Raiders, Sugar Grove Secrets, and Meanwhile a Nuclear Winter, both of which are 2-part episodes. So you'll have in total, I think we've added like an extra 6 hours of story for you to listen to. Particularly Meanwhile of Nuclear Winter is such a good episode. That's a great one. It's an homage to the Nuclear Winter mode. And most excitingly, the voice actors for Reuben Gill and Zax came back to join us for that one. Some of the lines I wrote for Zax are really funny. I think you'll enjoy that. So yeah, I want to get those edited and out the door for January. So let's see who's on that we can raid into. All right, we're going to pass the party on to the final counselor. And yeah, thank you all, everyone, for listening. Thank you for listening to the show and sticking around and listening to our goofiness. And as always, thank my wonderful voice actors who bring these stories to life. Everyone who's here, Jessica, and Taylor, and Clint, and here, and everyone who's not here, who wanted to be here.
Yeah, I hate that more people couldn't come.
That's okay.
Life happens.
Thank you for everything.
Christmas Eve.
It's been amazing.
It's the holiday week.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us, though, Ken. I do appreciate it.
Thank
and you enjoy the time that you absolutely deserve off.
Thank you,
your
Shadow.
blackout days. You need to enjoy those.
Yeah, I'm going to go away for a good solid month and not have to listen to anything about fucking Elon Musk for a while. Did I say that out loud? Good.
I don't know if he hears it.
I don't need a social media platform with a protagonist / antagonist. Thank you very much. I'm just trying to get my news, for Christ's sakes. Let's pass on the party to the final counselor. I will be back tomorrow night, and thank you all for being here. Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Happy holidays,
everybody.
Now we get that awkward 10-second countdown where we just kind of stare at the camera, waiting for the thing to pop up. And
Good to see both of your faces.
good to see you all. Here we go.
All the faces.
Bye.
What about a few more like 12?